Born in 1916, Yamaguchi lived in Nagasaki but was in Hiroshima on a business trip for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries on August 6, 1945. That fateful morning, while walking towards the shipyard, he witnessed an American B-29 bomber drop a small object. This event, seemingly insignificant, would change everything. In its aftermath, it would leave Tsutomu Yamaguchi with a title mainly popular in Japan, Niju Hibakusha, or Twice-Bombed Person. Welcome to Lucky Life. Today we are talking about Tsutomu Yamaguchi, an ordinary engineer at Mitsubishi Heavy Industries who had been less than 2 miles from ground zero of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. A blinding flash, a deafening boom, and the world changed forever. Yet, miraculously, Yamaguchi survived the devastation. But his story doesn't end there. What followed was a harrowing journey of survival, resilience, and an extraordinary encounter with fate. Well, let's get started. On that fateful morning of August 6, 1945, as Tsutomu Yamaguchi made his way to Mitsubishi Heavy Industries shipyard for what he thought would be his final day in Hiroshima, the city was already bustling with activity. He had been away on a lengthy business assignment for 3 months, diligently working with his colleagues on the design of a new oil tanker. With the project nearing completion, he eagerly anticipated reuniting with his beloved wife Hisako and their little son Katsutoshi. As Yamaguchi strolled towards the shipyard around 8:15 a.m., the hum of an aircraft pierced the air. Looking up, he spotted an American B-29 bomber releasing a small object attached to a parachute. It was the Little Boy, the world's first atomic bomb used in warfare, detonating approximately 600 meters above Hiroshima. Suddenly, the sky ignited with a blinding flash akin to the brilliance of a massive magnesium flare. Reacting swiftly, Yamaguchi dove into a nearby ditch just moments before a deafening explosion rocked the city. The force of the blast lifted him off the ground, twirling him like a leaf in a storm before hurling him into a potato patch. "I didn't know what had happened," he later told the British newspaper The Times. "I think I fainted for a while. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark and I couldn't see much. It was like the start of a film at the cinema before the picture began, when the blank frames were just flashing up without any sound." The atomic blast had enveloped the surroundings in a thick veil of dust and debris, obscuring the morning sun. Yamaguchi, his face and arms seared by the intense heat, suffered ruptured eardrums. In a daze, Yamaguchi made his way toward the remnants of the Mitsubishi shipyard, where he found 2 colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, who had also miraculously survived the devastation. After a restless night spent in an air raid shelter, they ventured out on August 7th, hoping to find transportation out of the ravaged city. Their journey through the aftermath of the bombing was a harrowing passage through a surreal nightmare. The streets were still aglow with fires, buildings lay in ruins, and the roads were lined with the ghastly remnants of those who hadn't survived. At one point, Yamaguchi had to swim through a river choked with floating corpses. Finally, reaching the station, he boarded a train filled with fellow survivors, all bearing the scars of the atomic inferno, for the overnight trip back to Nagasaki. While Yamaguchi embarked on his journey home to reunite with his family, the world's attention was fixated on the tragedy of Hiroshima. Just 16 hours after the blast, President Harry Truman addressed the nation, unveiling the existence of the devastating atomic bomb. He described it as tapping into the very essence of the universe's power, a force harnessed to bring an end to the conflict in the Far East. The Enola Gay, a B-29 bomber, had taken off from Tinian, a Pacific island, and flown over 1,500 miles to unleash Little Boy upon Hiroshima. The immediate aftermath claimed around 80,000 lives, with tens of thousands more succumbing to injuries in the weeks to follow. Truman's message was clear: surrender or face unprecedented destruction from the skies. Arriving in Nagasaki in the early hours of August 8th, Yamaguchi made his way to the hospital, his body ravaged by burns. Even the doctor, a former classmate, struggled to recognize him amidst the charred flesh. His family, too, initially mistook him for a specter upon his return home, his feverish and bandaged appearance adding to the surrealism of the moment. Despite his weakened state, Yamaguchi summoned the strength to rise from his bed on the morning of August 9th and headed to Mitsubishi's Nagasaki office for work. By around 11 a.m., He found himself in a meeting with a company director who demanded a detailed account of the events in Hiroshima. As Yamaguchi recounted the horrifying experience of August 6th, the blinding flash, the thunderous roar, his superiors dismissed his words as sheer madness. How could one bomb obliterate an entire city? Yamaguchi attempted to clarify when suddenly the world outside erupted once more in a blinding white flash. Reacting swiftly, he dropped to the ground just moments before the shockwave shattered office windows, sending glass and debris hurtling through the room. The atomic bomb that struck Nagasaki proved even more devastating than its predecessor in Hiroshima. Yet, by a stroke of luck, the hilly terrain of the city and a sturdy stairwell within the office helped dampen the impact of the blast. Though his bandages were torn off and he received another dose of cancer-causing radiation, Yamaguchi emerged relatively unscathed. Escaping from the battered remains of the Mitsubishi building, Yamaguchi hurried through the devastated streets of Nagasaki to check on his loved ones. His heart sank at the sight of his partially collapsed home, but relief flooded over him when he discovered his wife and son had suffered only minor injuries. His wife, out seeking burn ointment for him, had found shelter with their baby in a nearby tunnel when the bomb struck. It was yet another twist of fate. Had Yamaguchi not been injured in Hiroshima, his family might not have escaped unscathed in Nagasaki. In the aftermath, Yamaguchi grappled with the effects of his double exposure to radiation. His hair fell out, wounds on his arms turned gangrenous, and relentless vomiting plagued him. On August 15th, as Japan's Emperor Hirohito announced surrender, Yamaguchi, sick and feverish, found himself indifferent, teetering on the brink of life and death. Remarkably, Yamaguchi defied the odds, gradually recovering to lead a relatively ordinary life. He worked as a translator for the U.S. military during Japan's occupation, later teaching and returning to his engineering career. Despite the horrors etched in his memory, he found solace in poetry. It wasn't until the 2000s that he publicly addressed his experiences, releasing a memoir and advocating against atomic weapons. In 2006, he addressed the United Nations on nuclear disarmament, viewing it as his destiny after surviving 2 atomic bombings. Yamaguchi wasn't alone in facing the dual horrors. His co-workers and others in Nagasaki shared similar fates. Despite the estimated 165 individuals who experienced both bombings, Yamaguchi was the sole recipient of official recognition as a twice-bombed person by the Japanese government. This honor came in 2009, just a year before his passing on January 4, 2010, at 93. So, what lessons can we learn from his resilience and determination in the face of unimaginable adversity?